Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of VENDO Velocity. We're super glad that you decided to join us today. If this is your first time joining us on the VENDO Velocity podcast, I will tell you a little bit about what we're about here at VENDO and specifically VENDO Velocity. So, VENDO Velocity is VENDO's live podcast that goes live every other week, and we talk about the latest trends and strategic updates across Amazon, Walmart, TikTok Shop, retail media, search and social, you name the channel, we will be talking about it here. And we get down to the nitty gritty, which is why I brought on Sneha with me today, who's going to talk all things Amazon transparency. We feel at Vendo that this is a program that doesn't get leveraged enough. There are a lot of great benefits for utilizing this program. It's transformed a lot over the last year or so as well. So without going too much into the topic, let me start off with an introduction first. Sneha, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Sneha Nisha, and I'm the lead account health manager at VENDO, where I oversees all aspects of Amazon account health for our clients, from resolving account suspensions and listing suppressions to managing compliance, brand protection, and customer experience. I help brands to stay in good standing and scale their business on Amazon. So, super excited to be here today with my amazing friend and colleague, Delaney.
Yes, Sneha is the greatest, and she just went through like 5 to 10 different things she does, but I kid you not, she touches everything here at Vendo. So we appreciate her more than anything. I appreciate her as a friend. But there's so much that we want to talk about here today on just, again, as I said, a lot of the nitty gritty of what is Amazon transparency and how should you be leveraging it for your brand. So Sneha reminded me first that it's been like a year since she's been on the podcast. So again, comment and like this if you want her back, because I'm trying to get her back, but that's between me and her, and I'll figure that out. Before we dive into things, let's talk about what is Amazon transparency, Sneha. I think a lot of people might not even know what that is. So why don't we take a step back and you kick it off with what is it?
Yeah, so giving introduction to Amazon Transparency. Amazon Transparency is a product serialization program which is designed to help brands protect their products from counterfeiting and unauthorized reselling. So it was launched with a clear mission to protect brands and ensure customers always receive authentic, high quality goods, right? So basically, it's a proactive solution that gives brand owners direct control over their listing by requiring a unique transparency code. I would say think of it as a digital fingerprint that needs to be applied to each unit of every product enrolled. Without that code, the product can't be listed or shipped.
Absolutely. So this is really important as far as the distinction, because when you talk to Amazon and the transparency team about this, they will say this is a program in which you could reduce counterfeit sellers. But as Sneha just pointed out, it's also a program from what we've seen where you will reduce unauthorized reselling almost naturally because of the essence of the program itself. Now, again, that's not the main reason why you're running it. It's just an added benefit and a result that you'll see coming out of the program more often than not for various reasons that Sneha and I will talk about here today. But as Sneha mentioned, it's really important that you get this part right, because you do need to serialize every single product that you produce. That's the point of Amazon transparency is this product counterfeit in general? It's not, did they buy it on this marketplace? Did they buy it on this marketplace? It's no, is the product counterfeit in general? So Sneha, can you talk to us a little bit about why should brands care about this? Why is this such a big problem?
Yeah, because of course it's a very great question, right? Why should brand care? Because counterfeit just don't eat your revenue; they erode customer trust. It damages your reputation and can even trigger negative reviews and returns for your product that you didn't manufacture, right? Transparency, I would say, act as a line of defense, helping you to maintain control over your listing and keeping unauthorized sellers off your ASIN. But this program just doesn't benefit brands, it's a win for customers too, right? Shoppers feel safer and they're more confident in their purchase and they're more likely to come back. That's real brand equity, right? Think about it as a shopper, like how much more confident are you when you know that you can verify the product in your hand is 100% real. right? Plus, brand can choose to attach extra product details to each transparency code, like manufacturing date, origin, or usage tips, which adds as a premium layer of post-purchase engagement. So that kind of transparency boosts satisfaction, reduces returns, and increases repeat purchases. So
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And I think ultimately, a lot of people are coming to Amazon because of that trust factor in general, right? You know that if you're ordering it from Amazon, majority of the time, as long as you're looking at the listing carefully, that listing is legit. But what we know about Amazon in general is that about 50% of sellers almost at this point are Chinese sellers. And we know that sometimes those Chinese sellers can list product on the site that either one, isn't legitimate. They're changing either the packaging of the product, the ingredients of the product, the actual substance of the product itself. So what you think you might be consuming, if it is even a consumable good, is not actually what the brand is positioning it as or what the brand has created. That's really dangerous for a lot of reasons. And Sneha's point on the repeat customers is number one, right? Because a lot of these brands, you have one chance to make an impression. You've just spent all this money to reach top of page for a non-branded keyword that you want to accelerate your sales on. And then bam, winning the buy box is a third-party seller who, again, isn't selling a legitimate product of yours. The customer is going to buy that product. They're going to have one bad experience and they're never going to buy from you again. For a platform like Amazon, where you're really capturing consumer demand rather than naturally generating any consumer demand, you have that chance to capture them top of page. You probably paid a decent amount to acquire that customer, and now they're not going to repeat. You're not going to see your lifetime value grow. That's a very dangerous game that you're playing there. So, Sneha, talk a little bit about how that's helping to combat counterfeits and unauthorized sellers at the same time.
yeah, so talking about one of the biggest value prop of Amazon transparency program is its ability to stop counterfeit and unauthorized sellers, right? So with transparency, every single product gets a unique code which Amazon scans at its fulfillment center. So even if a counterfeiter tries to copy a packaging, they cannot fake a transparency code, right? And without that code, the item simply won't move through Amazon system. Let's say a third party seller tries to hop on your ASIN, maybe they bought through gray market goods or are not an approved partner. With transparency activated, Amazon will require them to upload a valid transparency code before they can list or fulfill the product. And if they don't have the codes, the listing will be rejected or suppressed. So, and you might be thinking, what about the FBM sellers, right? For FBM sellers, there is 14 days grace period to verify the product authenticity. Any seller already on the listing, when a product is protected through transparency, will have 14 days to submit a valid transparency code. However, a new seller will not be able to join the listing unless they provide a transparency code, ensuring that only authorized, authentic units will make it to the customers.
Absolutely. So this is super important for us to grasp because as we both talked about earlier, every single product needs to have this code, but that code is a unique code. And what Sneha just went through is that even these third-party sellers will need to add that code. This is the exact reason why you will naturally see a decrease in unauthorized sellers. You have a lot of these sellers that maybe are focused on retail arbitrage. They're getting your product from another source. Think of like a TJ Maxx, think of a Marshalls, think of really anywhere. Maybe they're going in store at Walmart where the product's cheaper, which we're not seeing as much now because Amazon's matching everywhere. But just for you guys to understand, because all these third-party sellers need this unique code, naturally, they're not going to go through the effort of getting that code, uploading that code for every single item. And then you're able to reduce the number of third-party sellers long-term. Again, that's not going to all happen at once, but you're going to see that reduction over the long term there. And then to Sneha's point, this also affects those FBM sellers because they will also then have to list with that code as well after that original wave is submitted there. But Sneha, I think a lot of people are probably like, okay, maybe you sold me on transparency. This could make sense. One, I want to know the cost, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But two, what is the process to even get me enrolled in this? So can you talk through that process of enrollment a little?
Yeah, sure. So, how do you enroll the product into transparency, right? You need a registered trademark and prove that you are the legal brand owner. Once Amazon verifies that, they will give you the access to transparency self-service portal. And after you have the access to self-service transparency portal, you just need to fill out the product configuration template. They will give you a unique transparency code that you can download in either PDF or CSV. Then you need to apply that code, and these codes must be printed and applied to every unit of the product, either as a label or integrated into the packaging artwork. And when Amazon receives the product at its fulfillment center, it will scan the transparency code. If a product does not have a valid transparency code, Amazon will flag it as inauthentic and prevent it from shipping.
Got it. Those are great points there. So I want to understand, what are the costs of doing that? Because that process, that 4-step process that you just identified there, it doesn't seem too complicated. Of course, from a labeling standpoint, there's an essence to that where you're printing out the labels, you're putting that on the packaging. So if you're doing that within your 3PL, that's a little bit of some added labor there. But what are the overall costs of the program?
So the transparency cost is based on the volume. Cost is ranging from 1 cent to 5 cents per code, depending on the total number of units enrolled. For instances, if it is less than 1 million units, you pay approximately 5 cents per code. If it's from 1 million to 10 million units, you pay around 3 cents per code. And over 10 million units, you pay around 1 cent per code. So the more code you order, the less you pay per unit.
Got it. And then also there's this process called OPR, which is really where you start with. So I want to understand just timing overall of what OPR looks like. But before we go into that, can you just dive into how do brands start the OPR process, which is the beginning of transparency and getting enrolled there?
Yeah, so OPR, I say it's operational performance review, and it is one of the most important phase in the transparency, and it is called a testing phase. So it is a testing phase to validate your labeling accuracy before transparency protection goes live. So you begin the OPR right after your products are enrolled in transparency and labeled with valid transparency code. So this is a requirement for every ASIN you enroll, and it has to be manually turned on in the transparency self-service portal. So how it works is you fill on the OPR turn on request form. Amazon starts scanning your labeled product in the fulfillment center. If everything checks out, the codes are in the right place, readable and correctly matched to the product, then yes, the product enters the protected status, right? And from that point onwards, unauthorized sellers can no longer list or ship the product unless they have a valid transparency code. But you might be wondering, like, what happens to the product that are already being accepted into FBA before transparency is turned on, right? So any inventory that's already in FBA and in closed status will be grandfathered into the transparency program, meaning it won't be blocked even if it doesn't have the transparency label.
Got it. Talk to me a little bit about OPR then. Did you say that the pass rate for OPR was 80%, or what do you need to pass OPR?
It's yeah. So another important question that often comes up is how many units needs to be enrolled in transparently so that you can start the OPR, right? You
Yep.
must send a minimum of 10 units per ASIN with a scan accuracy of at least 98%. So 98% is the scan accuracy rate.
98%. So that's very important there because, again, for those 10 units, one, if 9 out of 10 of those units pass and then the one doesn't pass, then you're not going to pass OPR. So you probably want to increase that total number of units that you send in for the very first round. That way there's a little bit of buffer room. But you also really want to make sure ahead of time that these codes are scannable so that you're not wasting time on the OPR process. And again, just allowing those third-party sellers to sell for a longer amount of time. So I want to just talk a little bit more about the business impact of transparency specifically, because I think that there's a ton of things from a customer support standpoint that Sneha just mentioned, which we are recommending for our brands because, one, it makes Sneha's life a lot easier, but of course, it allows you to grow your brand sales much faster as well. One, of course, cutting down on buy box losses. As Sneha already talked about, from the standpoint of FBA and FBM sellers having to then stop selling on the listings for third-party sellers once you've gone through that OPR process, once the product's enrolled in transparency, once they've sold through that inventory, they will then have to upload additional inventory using those codes, right? Sneha, did you say it was 60 days that they had overall to continue selling while we're enrolled?
Yes, that's correct, 60 days.
So 60 days, right? So you have about a 2-month buffer in which, sure, they can continue to sell, but throughout that period, you know that the time is ticking where you're going to have a cleaner buy box, because if they want to upload more inventory, they're going to have to get access to your codes. The second one, just being customer feedback in general. Sneha mentioned this at the very beginning of our call, but when you talk about customer complaints, negative reviews, a lot of customer complaints and negative reviews will sometimes come from these third-party sellers where they're going to say like, this product wasn't as advertised. The listing said this, I received this, right? That's probably because the third-party sellers are either one, messing with your content, or two, not shipping what the listing is actually outlining. And that's all your content. That's your investment that you're growing into organic. So again, low-hanging fruit is just enroll in Amazon Transparency. 3 to 5 cents a code, as Sneha said, over 10 million codes, 1 cent a code, but it's a pretty nominal fee there. Of course, the more significant fee might be how you're configuring that at your 3PL and just the labeling in general. But overall, especially if you're selling across retail, especially if there are a lot of distributors who have your product, this will help with third-party seller reduction long-term. It will help with returns. It will help with the customer experience. And it will just help with how customers are perceiving your product. Sneha talked a little bit about this in the beginning as well, but brand equity, right? How are consumers perceiving your product? If you sell a more premium product in the space, this is going to become even more crucial for your brand as well. And then Sneha, can you talk a little bit about the transparency dashboard? What are you able to see in terms of some analytics?
So you can once you have in the as far as analytics goes, you can download the reports. You can see when your OPR was turned on, how many counterfeit listings were there, how many invalid scans were there, return trends, everything that kind of report you can download from the dashboard.
Awesome. So then you'll have that unique data around counterfeit listings, those scans, any return trends, etc. So you can, again, very clearly see, not just in the business reports, but even in the transparency portal, what impact is transparency having on your overall business. So Sneha, I talked through some of those challenges. Did you want to reiterate kind of what your stance is on the program, what brands should be considering operationally as far as challenges before proceeding with the program, and just what is your overall take as someone who leads this entire department for Vendo? How much upside is there, and what types of brands should be enrolling?
Yeah, so Amazon Transparency has a few operational challenges, but the good news is that most of them come with a big benefits that make it all worth in the long run, right? So starting with labeling, yes, you're required to label 100% of your product unit, and that means coordinating with your manufacturers, printers, warehouses to make sure everything is applied correctly before the product goes out. But the upside is once everything is in place, it creates a systematic safeguard across your entire supply chain, meaning every unit is trackable, verifiable, and protected, no matter where it is sold, right? Next would be labeling accuracy is crucial. So transparency code must be correctly placed, readable, and matched to the right product. But the benefit here is it creates a zero tolerance environment for fake product, right? So that means no negative reviews, brand equity, etc., as Delaney discussed. Next is cost per code. Brand do pay per transparency code for high volume SKUs. This adds up, right? So, but however, this code is often less far than the revenue lost to hijackers, buy box suppression, negative reviews caused by counterfeit goods. So many brand reports positive ROI simply from buy box retention alone. So yeah, and then education and training. Internal teams needs to be understand how you need to enroll the products. You need to train them how to generate codes, prints, but it's pretty easy. And once your team are trained, you can unlock the access to powerful tools like return analytics, brand reports, and unit level per data. So all these reports, you get the visibility, and that can definitely improve both operations and customer experience.
Absolutely. And if you've stayed with us for the last 20 minutes, we'll tell you another thing, that transparency happens on the UPC level. So you take that for what it is, but when you have different UPCs on other marketplaces, there is a way around stickering your entire assortment because of the fact that that product will have different UPCs. So just keep that in mind when you're enrolling. But Sneha, you had so many great takeaways today. So before we leave our audience here, why don't you just go ahead and summarize everything that you've gone over in a few short 3 to 5 sentences here?
Yeah, sure. So as we wrap up today's episode of Transparency, Amazon Transparency, let's recap a few key takeaways. So Amazon Transparency isn't just a defense mechanism, it's a proactive branding and trust building tool. Every unit you enroll gets a unique fingerprint, ensuring customers receive only your authentic product. It empowers you to block counterfeiters, protect your listings, and gain valuable post-sale insight. But like any powerful tool, it comes with operational responsibilities, labeling accuracy, onboarding requirement, and coordination with your supply chain partners. So if you're serious about growing a brand on Amazon and beyond, transparency can be a game changer for sure, as we have been discussing for the last 20 minutes. It protects your reputation, increases buyer confidence, and help you to build lasting loyalty.
I really want to end on that first point that Sneha made there. It isn't just a defense mechanism. And that's super important because a lot of people will say, get enrolled in brand registry and protect your brand and defend your brand, right? That is 100% true. Brand registry allows you to do that. Sneha's always submitting third-party infringement claims against unauthorized sellers. That happens. But Amazon transparency is a proactive approach. It's a proactive approach because you're saying, okay, I am starting by looking at how I'm going to reduce counterfeit sellers, how I'm going to reduce third-party sellers, but it's also, I am looking at how I'm going to improve my brand perception on Amazon, control the narrative that's being spoken about my brand on Amazon, ultimately leading to a better customer experience, which, as we know, the customer experience is the number one thing on Amazon that will lead to increased sales. You see it with reviews all the time. So please, if there's one takeaway from that, it's that it's not just about defending your brand. It's about proactively growing your brand and in really securing that trust from the customer as well. But Sneha, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this was a super informative episode, as it always is. So please, if there are any questions for Sneha, you can reach her at sneha@vendocommerce.com. I can be found at delaney@vendocommerce.com. And if there are any additional topics specific to account health, customer service, brand registry, anything that you heard Sneha talk about in the early part of this episode that she manages and leads here at Vendo, please drop those in the chat and in the LinkedIn comments, as we would love to hear from you, and we will have a separate episode on that alone. Thank you again for joining us here today on Vendo Velocity, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.